Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've got some really fascinating material sent in by you, our listeners. And today, well, we're diving into something pretty fundamental. It's about the Earth's own frequency, the Schumann resonance. And the sources you sent paint a really interesting picture. They talk about reports that this frequency, which was apparently super stable for ages, might be changing, like changing dramatically. And the big question these materials raise is, what could that mean for us? For human consciousness, maybe even for how we experience time itself. So that's our mission today. Let's unpack what these sources say about this Earth frequency, look at the shifts they report, and explore the pretty big implications they discuss. Ready to jump in? Let's start with the basics. Based on the material you provided, what is the Schumann resonance?
All right, let's set the stage. According to the definition included in your sources, the one from Wikipedia, the Schumann resonances are basically a set of peaks. They show up in the extremely low frequency part, that's ELF, of the Earth's electromagnetic field. Think of it like the planet's natural background hum. And how is it generated? Well, the material says it's mainly from lightning, massive lightning discharges happening all the time around the globe. These discharges happen in this kind of cavity you see, formed by the Earth's surface below and the ionosphere way up above.
Okay, so like a giant natural echo chamber.
Exactly. And the lightning is glapping inside that chamber. It makes certain frequencies resonate, bounce around the planet. These are the Schumann resonances. And the key thing, according to the sources, is that for a very long time, the main frequency was incredibly stable. It apparently hovered at a steady 7.83 hertz with only slight variations. That number, 7.83 hertz, is presented as the Earth's historical heartbeat, basically. Very consistent.
7.83 hertz. Okay, so a steady baseline, the planet's rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
But the sources you sent suggest this steady beat started to falter or change. When did the material say this started?
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting. The first hint of something unusual, what the sources call an anomaly, was apparently spotted back in June 2014. This was reportedly picked up by the Russian Space Observing Systems monitors. They started seeing something different than the usual 7.83 hertz peak.
Different how? A spike, you mean?
Exactly. The source says it suddenly jumped up to around 8.5 hertz.
Okay, 8.5. It doesn't sound huge numerically, but I guess it was always 7.83.
Right. It was unusual enough that they then reportedly saw days where it accelerated even more. The sources mentioned levels reaching up to 16.5 hertz.
Whoa, 16.5? That's more than double the baseline. That is a significant jump. Did the sources mention how this looked on the monitoring systems?
Yes, they did. There's a detail about the monitoring graph. Normally, it showed blues and greens for the typical frequencies. But during these spikes, these stark white areas started appearing on the graph. The source implies this white represented these much higher, unusual frequencies.
White areas, correct.
It was so unexpected, apparently, that the first reaction described in the source was, "Our equipment must be broken."
Huh. Okay, that tells you something. If you think your gear is failing, it must have been really off the charts from what they expected.
Pretty much. But then the sources state they checked and confirmed the data was accurate. It wasn't an equipment malfunction.
Wow.
And that, naturally, led to a big question, even back then in 2014. The material actually quotes it. What's causing this intermittent spiking activity is the Earth's frequency speeding up.
Yeah, that's the logical question.
Yeah.
And I guess that question didn't go away because the sources point to an even bigger event later on.
Precisely. The really central claim, the most dramatic one presented in the material, relates to January 31st, 2017. According to one of these sources, something happened on that day that had never been recorded before. It states pretty clearly that for the first time in recorded history, the Schumann resonance reportedly hit frequencies of 36 plus hertz.
Wait, from a baseline of 7.83 and 16.5 was already seen as strange in 2014? 36.
Yeah, 36 plus hertz. The source really emphasizes this, calling it a big deal. It makes the point that if those 1525 hertz levels seen in 2014 were considered weird, then hitting 36 plus was, something else entirely. A major shift from anything previously documented, according to this account.
That's incredible, if accurate. Did the source mention where this data could be seen?
It did, yeah. It pointed to a website, prooffinger.com, suggesting it showed real-time tracking. It mentioned needing translation, but presented this 36 plus hertz event as the key observation from that time.
Okay, so we had this story emerging from the sources. A stable 7.83 hertz baseline, then these unusual spikes up to 16.5 hertz starting around 2014, and then this huge reported leap to 36 plus hertz in 2017. Which leads us to the next really big question the sources explore. So what? Why does this Earth frequency matter to us? Is there, like, a connection to human consciousness?
This is really where the sources try to connect the dots between planetary physics and, well, us. The core hypothesis explored in the material is that the Schumann frequency is, and I'm quoting here, said to be in tune with the human brain's alpha and theta states. The sources spend some time on this, drawing parallels with neurofeedback research, the study of brainwaves. They basically propose a direct correlation. Specific Schumann frequencies might line up with specific states of human brain activity.
Interesting. Okay, let's break that down based on what the sources say.
Yeah.
What about the old baseline, the 7.83 hertz? What brain state does that supposedly link to?
According to the neurofeedback info cited in the material, that 7.83 hertz lines up with what's called an alpha-theta state. The source describes this as, relaxed, maybe a bit dreamy, like a neutral idling state. Your brain is calm, receptive, maybe just before sleep or in deep meditation.
Okay, calm and receptive.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So what about when the frequency reportedly started climbing in 2014 into that 8.5 to 16.5 hertz range?
Well, the source suggests this corresponds to moving out of that deeper theta state and more into alpha, maybe even touching on faster beta frequencies. The material links this frequency shift to a change in our cognitive state, too. It uses the phrase, slowly waking up cognitively. Like our collective consciousness is becoming more alert.
Slowly waking up cognitively. That's a fascinating way to put it. And those white areas on the graph you mentioned, the higher spikes, maybe 12 to 15 or 16 hertz?
Yeah, the sources highlight those frequencies too. They point out that in neurofeedback, the 12 to 15 hertz range is called the sensory motor rhythm, or SMR, and the material describes this SMR state as an ideal state of awakened calm.
Awakened calm? What's that feel like, according to the source?
It's described as a state where your thought processes are clearer and more focused, yet we are still in the flow or in the know.
Huh. Clearer focused, but still in the flow. Interesting.
So, yeah, the suggestion woven through these sources is that these reported shifts in the planet's frequency might actually be influencing our dominant brainwave patterns, pushing us towards maybe faster, more focused, potentially more aware states of being.
That connection alone is, well, it's pretty profound. But the sources take it even further, right? They talk about bigger picture implications. What else does the material suggest this all might mean?
Yes, definitely. If these shifts and correlations are happening as reported, the sources propose some pretty big consequences. There's this idea that Mother Earth is shifting her vibrational frequency, and perhaps so are we. It frames it as this interconnected process, not just something happening out there, but something affecting us in here. And one of the main ideas they put forward is about time perception. Remember that feeling many people have that time is speeding up.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Seems like everyone feels that way sometimes.
Well, the sources suggest this reported acceleration in the Earth's frequency may be why it often feels like time has sped up and events and changes in our life are happening more rapidly. It offers a potential physical basis for that subjective feeling.
That's what. Linking that common feeling to a potential change in the planet's frequency was quite something. What other potentials did the sources touch on?
The material mentions extraordinary potentials we have hardly begun to study. It floats the idea that this shift could be helping creative gifts, intuition, maybe latent talents to emerge more easily or become more stable. The sources suggest that tuning into this changing electromagnetic environment might help us unlock potential for healing, personal growth, even things like non-local communication, as one source puts it.
Non-local communication.
Yeah.
Like intuition or telepathy.
The source doesn't specify precisely, but it points towards abilities beyond our usual sensory inputs. And then there's this other really intriguing theory mentioned. It's attributed to a wise old sage from India. This theory claims the Earth's magnetic field, which is related to the resonance, was actually put in place intentionally by ancient ones.
Intentionally? To do what?
To act as a sort of memory block. The idea presented is that it was meant to block our deeper, perhaps past life or primordial memories, allowing souls to experience free will here on Earth without being unhampered by memories of the past.
A planetary memory block. It's a wild concept from the source material.
It is, and the theory continues that the Earth's magnetic field is weakening now, which science has observed, and this weakening is loosening those memory blocks. The implication, according to this source, is that as the field weakens and the resonance shifts, we're raising our consciousness to greater truth. It uses phrases like, the veil is lifting, or the blinders are coming off. It's presented as one possible interpretation within the source material.
The veil is lifting. That's a powerful image, especially tied to a physical planetary change reported in these sources. But, okay, these sound like potentially positive, if intense, changes. Did the sources also mention downsides or challenges? Physical effects?
They do, yeah. The material acknowledges this reported acceleration might not be all smooth sailing. It suggests that the increasing frequency may make you feel more tired, exhausted, dizzy, depressed, and even strange.
Ah, okay. So common feelings like burnout, dizziness, maybe even anxiety, the sources suggest these could actually be linked to this planetary shift.
That's the perspective offered, yes. They frame these feelings not just as problems, but potentially as symptoms of adjustment, part of the process of, quoting again, raising your own frequencies to be more in tune with the new Earth.
So like growing pains on a planetary scale.
Kind of, yeah. The material says adaptation is not always an easy process, but keep in mind it's all part of your own unique awakening. It encourages viewing these physical or emotional challenges as your own system trying to sync up with the Earth's reported new rhythm.
That definitely puts a different spin on feeling wiped out or a bit weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've traced the story in these sources. The steady 7.83 hertz, the 2014 shifts to 8.5 and 16.5 hertz, the really dramatic reported jump to 36 plus in 2017. We looked at the proposed links to our brain states, alpha, theta, SMR, the ideas about time speeding up, new potentials emerging, even that lifting the veil theory, and the possible physical side effects of adapting.
Which brings us right back to that reported 2017 event, the 36 plus hertz reading, and the core question the sources leave hanging in the air. Considering everything reported, the baseline, the acceleration, the links to consciousness, that unprecedented jump, the material essentially asks you, the listener, to consider. What are your thoughts on what will happen if we maintain spikes of 30 plus?
It really is a compelling question to sit with, isn't it? We've journeyed through the sources you shared, looking at the Schumann resonance baseline, the startling reports of its increase, how it might connect to our brain states and sense of time, and these fascinating theories about a potential human awakening, new abilities, maybe even accessing hidden truths, as one source suggested, with the veil-lifting idea. And just to be super clear, everything we've covered, the data points, the observations, the theories, is all drawn directly from the source materials you provided for this deep dive. We're relaying what's in there. So the final thought we can take from these sources is this. If, and it's a big if based on these reports, if the Earth's fundamental frequency is undergoing such a profound shift, and if we are tied to it in the ways these sources suggest, what kind of future, what kind of human potential might actually be starting to unfold right now? Something to think about.